Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Farm Journal Field Days Equipment Edition. And what better way to kick off this exciting day than to be joined by my good friend and machinery, Pete. Greg Peterson, how are things up in Minnesota this morning?
We're a little cold up here, Tyne. I think we're below zero this morning, but honestly, we've had a pretty mild winter here in Minnesota. So if we don't get a little bit of below zero, we kind of lose our perceived toughness. So everything is good.
Well, here in Missouri, I'm okay with not being tough because it is way too cold for us. I would like to ship this weather back up your way, Greg. So if you're inside this morning looking for something to do, Farm Journal Field Days is the perfect fit today. Some of you may be joining us on Facebook this morning, others on our Farm Journal Field Days site. So if you want to partake in Farm Journal Field Days Equipment Edition on this Tuesday, you can log on to farmjournalfielddays.com. Register. There's some fun things happening all day long, including some fun prizes that we'll get into, Greg. But, you know, this is a day that we've really been celebrating for the past couple weeks now. And you, Greg, have been looking for folks to submit their favorite tractors, and you have some amazing stories that have poured in.
Yeah, Tyne, about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we did a Facebook and Twitter post and just, kind of asked our Machinery Pete audience, hey, what's your all-time favorite tractor? And I said, tell me your favorite tractor and tell me why. And I knew what would happen. The times I've done this over the years, the responses we get are just fantastic. So thank you, all you folks out there, for chiming in. And gosh, I think it was over 500 responses, Tyne, and very emotional type responses. The key word going in that I was expecting would come shining through is grandpa. And that proved to be accurate. I think a lot of times our connections to our tractors have this family connection. So people would post and say, this was the first tractor my grandpa ever bought, or I'm restoring this tractor. So we pulled kind of the top responses together. And right here, Farm Journal Equipment Edition, you vote for your favorite tractor, picture, and story. And again, I'm kind of a data guy, Tyne, you know that. So I was interested to see which models were kind of going to be mentioned the most. And I guess one thing I was interested in there was the variety and age of tractors. So obviously you've got some folks that say, this Farmall A is my favorite for family reasons. But then you get up to people who said, a John Deere, 8210 was the first tractor I bought, and it's always been my favorite. So again, thank you for everyone for your responses. And definitely, folks, check this out here at Farm Journal Field Days, your favorite tractor section where, again, you can vote. So pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, and you can see the banner at the bottom of the screen. It tells you how to register. Kevin Kraft chimed in. Greg, he said there's still an ag show in Bismarck, North Dakota. And typically this week, you and I would be at the National Farm Machinery Show this week. That show canceled, just like many in 2021. But we are still celebrating equipment with Farm Journal Field Days Equipment Edition. So this is the perfect fit this morning. You typically be talking about trends that you're seeing to start off the year. We're going to do that today. A lot of things to talk about this morning. If you have comments, if you have questions for Greg, if you're watching us via social media, just drop your comment or your question below. We'll be able to see those. And if you're watching us via the Farm Journal Field Days site, which will be where the rest of our agenda is housed for today, you can drop your comment there, and then we will get those, and I'll be sure to ask Greg. All right, Greg. When you look at, I want to look back at 2020, but before we do that, you just posted on Twitter last night about an impressive sale. And Greg, apparently the 90s are back in more than one way, not just with fashion right now, but tractors, because a late 90s model tractor brought a pretty impressive price.
Yeah, yesterday, Tyne, in Harlan, Iowa, a farm retirement auction. It was or farm estate auction. It was actually Kent Morgan Farm Estate sale. The sale was by Pauley Family Auction Service in Harlan, Iowa, so kind of west central part of the state. And I'd had a few people ping me about this beforehand. One of those sales, Tyne, where the equipment was just beautiful, and they had a 1998 John Deere 8400, which I did a blog about last night. It looked like it was about 1,000 hours on it, but it actually had 4,033 hours. But it sold for $100,000, which on a workhorse model like a John Deere 8400, which I think Deere made like 95 to 99. You can imagine how many I've seen the last, all these years I've been compiling prices. And 100K Ty, that's tied for the highest auction price in the last 9 years. In fact, it's actually tied for the fourth highest ever. So here we go now. It's 23 years old, but selling for that money. So kind of indicative of what I've been seeing lately on the good condition, particularly tractors. When they have a little age on them like that, they're just red hot. In fact, 31 years I've been tracking this stuff, Ty. I've probably only seen it like this maybe twice, late 07, early 08, when kind of the ethanol push in commodity prices went up. I remember that was like a light switch. Auction prices just immediately just went skyward. And then back late 2012, early 13, through about March of 13, that to me is still like the ultimate highest point I've ever seen. But I tell you, mid-November through right now, early February of 2021, it has been just red hot.
Yeah, so let's kind of take a glimpse back at 2020, Greg. So at what point in 2020 did you notice that the auction market and used equipment values really started to take off and you thought, okay, this isn't just an anomaly, this is becoming a trend?
Right. Well, actually, it was really interesting. I mean, 2020, such a crazy year for so many reasons, obviously COVID, but the year was very strong throughout, actually. I mean, we entered in used equipment values, I would say, Ty, were sort of slowly creeping up, which was a little interesting because, I mean, it's still tough to make a profit, until commodity prices ratchet up in the fall. But right through the whole COVID thing, I mean, auction pricing on good condition used was inching up. And then we hit September, and then it started to, we started to accelerate pretty quickly. And I had written years ago, Tyne, that when President Trump passed the tax law change, which I think went through like late December of 17, I think, I could be wrong, but that kind of beefed up the IRS Section 179, tax write-off provisions there. I knew that was going to be, basically a box of matches next to a big can of gasoline. It was just going to be a question of when money comes back into agriculture. And when commodity prices did their unexpected and pleasant surprise last fall, man, we got to November and December, and auction prices just, if it was in good shape, prices just exploded higher. And it's carried right over through the first, 5-6 weeks of 2021.
Yeah, and Greg, in 2020, there was a lot of nervousness, not just with the pandemic and the impact on commodity prices that we saw last spring. I know that really impacted moods. We saw that in the Ag Economy Barometer, and we will hit on that in a minute. But it also, the pandemic created some nervousness also with the equipment market and auctions, Greg. I mean, the auction market, some folks were already doing online auctions, but not everyone. And so I feel like the auction market had to pivot quickly. Did that happen? And because they were able to be so versatile, did that help with some of the trends that you saw to close out 2020?
Yeah, great question, Tyne. I think, years from now, I'll still be writing about the year 2020 and what did happen, that pivot to the online auction, which, like you said, online auctions have been around for a long time, and online bidding, going back over 15 years. But when last March descended on us, I remember getting home from Commodity Classic on Leap Day, the 29th of February. And then, oh my gosh, watching this take place, and the states shut down. And that was right in the middle of the busiest auction season we have, March into early April. So I was really worried. I thought there'd be all kinds of cancellations. Basically, we work with 1,100 auction companies throughout US and Canada. And some of them are huge, very sophisticated. Others, maybe have 1 or 2 machinery sales a year. But you had to deal with this. It was in your face. And the pivot to the online only auction was, frankly, surprisingly seamless. And one thing I did notice was very, very, noticeable. The auctioneers were really talking to each other. And that's a very competitive business. I mean, you're competing to get deals, to have these sales, and but auctioneers wanted to help each other, and the industry did an awesome job. Just my hat is tipped to them for leaning into that. And the online bidding, we've all been doing the online bidding for 15 years now. So the farmers were conditioned to click the button. And honestly, prices, if anything, ticked up a little bit, March, April, June, and we just kind of went on from there. And now people are just seeing, wow, these online, this is unbelievable. And in fact, we just did a podcast, Machinery Pete podcast last week. I interviewed a farmer whose retirement auction was the middle of December. He was in Marshalltown, Iowa. David McCubbin, Sullivan Auctioneers had the sale. And David's probably, I don't know, 70, low 70s. But I was just asking him, I'm like, David, what was it like, having an online auction? And he said, Pete, Matt Sullivan finally had to tell me, David, just don't look at the computer. Don't look at it until morning of the sale. He's like, oh my God, nobody's bidding. And his sale was just a knockout prices. He had beautiful equipment. And so, but now we're all learning. And like yesterday, the prices are there if it's good condition. So 2020 was a fascinating case study.
How has that also, the sudden shift to online? I mean, I've heard of some in-person sales, of course, but for the most part, they did shift. And Greg, how did that break down some of the barriers with geography that sometimes can happen in the auction market?
Oh, it's unbelievable, Ty. I mean, online bidding the last 15 years has slowly broken down those geographic walls. So if a nice piece of equipment is in North Carolina and someone up where I am in Minnesota sees it, wow, that's a low hour John Deere 4055. That's just what I want. That's become less of a thing, geography. You just factor trucking costs. It's plain and simple. But this last year, those whatever walls were left for geography, I mean, they're gone. So the number one thing I tell people now is if you're having a sale, whatever auction company you use, make sure they're doing, everything possible to get the word out. Social media, online bidding, obviously, maybe it's an online auction. But so geography, it's been interesting to watch. I remember a time we filmed an auction for our TV show last fall, and I think it was in Northwest Iowa. I'm trying to remember, Rock Rapids, maybe? Or no, I get these towns mixed up on all these auctions we cover. But anyway, it was in Northwest Iowa, and the owner sent me a picture about a week after the sale, and it was his corn head being loaded up on a trailer. But the buyer was from North Carolina. That's a long way from Northwest Iowa. But again, that buyer in North Carolina, they're busy. They saw it online. Hey, it's just what I want. Click the button, got the price he wanted, and factor in the shipping and off you go. So that's been amazing. The one thing with online auctions, kind of that I'm excited about looking forward time, is the potential for it to help the whole machinery sector. Yeah. And what I mean by that is the one issue that's been problematic over the decades on the used equipment market has been, honestly, when times are good and dealers are selling a lot of new equipment and farmers trading stuff in. And now this stuff is so expensive that when a farmer trades in his 2 or 3 row planter, tractor, combine, field cultivator, whatever, the dealer, it's high priced stuff. And dealers, you can get caught putting too much into trade-in values. And then when the music stops, commodity prices go down and farmers retreat in their buying attitude. The dealers get stuck with all this overpriced late model inventory. But now, for a combination of reasons, one is online auctions. It's helping, like you said, there's no geographic, we're bringing in more buyers. And the other factor, which we can talk about, is, which could be good or bad depending on how you view it, is there's fewer dealers. The dealer consolidation has just been unbelievable. So these fewer dealers are larger. They are more well capitalized. They're better structurally positioned to handle these blips, these cycles in ag. So I think larger dealers plus more online buyers will help deal with the slow times, which is a great thing for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, don't forget, if you have a question, you can drop your comments in on social media, on Facebook, if you're watching us on Facebook, or Farm Journal Field Days. There's a chat function there that you can ask your questions as well. All right, Greg, to end 2020, we knew that equipment, trends and sales, they were on the upward trend to end out the year. Well, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, they say in their December flash report that total farm tractor sales were up nearly 34%. That's just in December alone. So as you look at that, I mean, yes, I know every year at the end of the year, we expect some year-end buying, but this was up over the previous year. And so has that trend continued then as we enter 2021?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm guessing, Ty, and I don't like to guess too much. I like to refer to the numbers, what's reported on and what we compile. But I'm guessing those AEM numbers for tractor and combine sales for January, February are going to be up. Sprayers will be up, planters will be up. And what you reported on there, the end of 2020, December, I sort of look at it as a three-legged stool for confirmation points. So when you see sales of new up like that, and then I'm doing my thing, reporting on the used market, and obviously we've talked about used values have been rising, have been very strong. The third leg of the stool is we can monitor this at machinerypete.com, our website, is just plain old search traffic. Is it up or down, and to what categories, and up or down by how much? So you reported AEM said tractor sales, new tractor sales were up in December. I'm reporting the auction market is on fire in December. And oh, by the way, search traffic to 200 plus horse tractors, I think, was up like 20 to 30, 35% in December versus I think in fourth quarter versus the third quarter. So you've kind of got three confirmation points there going. And that doesn't happen that often where they, everything is red hot like that at the same time. So it's basically full bore straight ahead. And I think that being the case, Diane, now what gets really interesting looking ahead is we do have to wind this back to the start of the pandemic now. And if you're a John Deere or Case or New Holland or Kubota, you were sitting there at the time thinking, geez, we have to look ahead 6, 9, 12, 18 months. How much product do we need to make? What demand is there going to be? And it's hard, but if we go back a year, manufacturers had to be pretty darn conservative, and rightly so in their projections. So, they kind of pinched in the amount of product they were making, but no way of knowing the commodity prices would explode higher in the fall. Nobody would have predicted that. Except maybe you, Ty. You probably nailed that on U.S. Farm Report a while ago. But anyway, so now you've got more farmers wanting, they want more tractors. They want to buy a new planter. They want to buy a sprayer. They want to buy a more conditioner. Well, guess what? There just isn't going to be enough. Now, I've only seen this happen one other time in my 31 years of tracking the market daily. I saw it happen November, December of 2007. Again, the ethanol push, commodity prices went higher. And at that time, we were talking about a 10-year softer period of equipment sales coming off of the commodity price high in 96, which was short-lived. Now, when any market becomes about availability, then price gets chucked out the window, just like in the housing market around the country right now. Hey, I want to buy a house. Well, so do 25 other people. They all want that house. So what happens to price? Goes straight up. That's why we see that John Deere 8400 sell for $100,000 yesterday in Iowa.
Greg, I would like to say that we called the commodity prices in the unprecedented climb, but that's not the case. And if it was the case, Greg, I definitely wouldn't be here. Okay, so
you could have taken credit to it.
No, I do not need to take credit for that because that is not the case. All right, Dean on Facebook says, well, this is kind of old news. Price has been going hot for over a year or more. But Greg, is it old news? Because I know there were some segments of the equipment market that were seeing strength to start 2020, and then we saw the pandemic hit and things kind of changed a little bit. But now you are saying basically every segment of the equipment market is seeing strength. So is this truly old news?
Well, Dean isn't, I wouldn't say he's wrong. Like I said earlier, 2020 actually, even before we hit September, I thought was a very strong year. In fact, we have a quarterly report time we do kind of for the Wall Street community. We call it our Machinery Pete Used Values Index. And we have an overall rating in there. And it actually had been rising 4 quarters before the fourth quarter. But it had been rising kind of slowly and steadily. I think what happened at the end of the year, maybe, to change the narrative a little bit would be, used values weren't rising slowly at the end of the year. They were rising by leaps and bounds. In fact, we have a really good test case today, Tyne. There's an auction in Rensselaer, Indiana, farm retirement auction for Ron and Marge McElwain. And the sales by my good friends at Schrader Real Estate and Auction. Now, this is another sale time where everything on this sale is just, beautiful condition. But there's a tractor on this sale that I'm really watching. It's a 2013 model John Deere 8235R. Now, this thing's only got 44.1 hours on it. And it was a Gold Key Tour tractor. So people say, well, how in the world does it have 44 hours? Well, I don't know Ron McElwain. I'm guessing he bought it, in great part maybe for tax purposes, which is very common. And that was purchased back in 13, right at the end of the last, the highest period I've ever seen. So anyway, it's got 44 hours on it. It's up for sale. It's probably selling here within 2 hours. Now the online bid, before we hopped on live this morning, I looked, it was already up to $150,100. And typically these online auctions, they don't really start until the last hour. Now, the highest I've seen in 7 years is 164,000. And so what this tractor sells for today, I'm guessing it's just going to zoom here the last couple hours. And again, that's the little bit of difference we're talking about fourth quarter, where I would say maybe I wouldn't call it like old news. I would call it a continuation with an accelerant that used values, because Dean is right. Used values have been very strong. And there's a lot of pieces that go to this. The last number of years when profits were a little difficult, farmers basically, they had to update their equipment lines because so much new iron was bought from 08, through 13, that when the commodity price levels fell, it just became kind of easy for farmers to kind of hold on to the equipment because it was unprecedentedly new. And frankly, they couldn't trade it in to their dealer because the dealer couldn't give them much for it because he already had 15 or 20 of that item on the lot. So everything just kind of bogged down. I started to see it slowly come out of that funk in the end of 17 when farmers, you didn't want to, but you just had to update your tractor, your planter, your sprayer, whatever. And so Dean is right. The used values have been kind of going up like this, and then we hit fall and they just went like that.
Yeah. And Greg, when typically when we're at National Farm Machinery Show, you and I are talking about trends, what you've been seeing, what can you get the best deal on today? How did we end 2020? And then you say forward looking, St. Patrick's Day, for some reason, is typically a magic time when it comes to equipment prices. Why is that the case?
Well, I think, so I'm sitting here in Southeast Minnesota, Tyne, and if we say Midwest, now it's interesting, if you're down in Missouri, so up here in Minnesota, we consider, Missouri is Midwest. So we go Minnesota, Dakotas, down through Nebraska, Missouri, and then you go to the I-states, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio. You take that area, okay? And, so pre-planting. Farmers, what do you need for equipment for the new season? Okay, so St. Patty's Day, historically, around the country is when we would have every region would have 2 or 3 consignment sales. Hey, this is the pre-planting, auction, and this goes back way before the internet. So farmers kind of trained, think like up the road from me in Kenyon, Minnesota, a good friend Matt Maring with Maring Auction always has a big consignment sale, probably 1,500 pieces, 2,000 pieces in March, and so that it's just kind of structurally. Always been a thing. So a lot of people getting that last minute, I need a new planter, I could use an updated tractor. So March is always busy. Our friends in Canada, that bounces back a month. April is go time up there for a number of farm auctions. So it's always been the busiest time of year. And one interesting thing I've noticed, Tyne, over the years, and I think this is again a function of online. But used to be summer, early fall was kind of softer.
Can you start over? Hey, Greg, your internet broke up real quick, and I want you to hit this point. So go back to the start of that thought and sure. Restart it.
Yeah, St. Patty's Day, middle of March, historically time, just a busy time of year for auctions in the Midwest. Every area has their 1 or 2 big consignment sales, and that's kind of always been the case. So, it's the time of year you get that last piece of equipment you need before you get the seed in the ground. And I think right now, the last number of years, I've noticed it used to be like, I would say after St. Patrick's Day, that pricing would tend to get a little bit softer. But I'd probably say the last 4 or 5 years, we've noticed that's not it's been the case as much. And this is because of online auctions, online bidding. So it's just not quite as local as it used to be. But again, March is just a busy time here in the U.S. Up in Canada, April is a little bit more of the heaviest month for auctions. And it's always fun on this end to just see how stuff is selling.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Hey, Dean said thank you for addressing his comment. Don't forget, if you have questions or comments, drop it below if you're on social media, or you can use the chat function in Farm Journal Field Days as well. We want to get to all of your questions. Okay, Greg, Gold Key Farms asks, are the strong used prices more a function of new equipment prices versus available used? With the new X9 at close to $1 million, it seems that could be the driver. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Gold Key is on it. I mean, I could include that precursor with everything I write. Every column for Farm Journal, everything on our TV show, everything. Just the cost of new pulls up on the value of good used, no question. So yesterday, Tyne, when that John Deere 8400, it was again 23 years old, 4,000 hours on it, sold for $100,000 on the sale in Iowa. Now that was a physical auction, so there were actually people there. And I guarantee you, for $100,000, there were people standing there who went, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous." But there's just as many people there that said, "No, you want a new 225 horse tractor? What's a new one cost, buddy? It costs so much more than $100,000 to make your head spin." Just like Gold Key, quoted on the larger 8R or any color of new tractor, new planter, new combine. So what I've seen is that, no question, the rising price of new pulls up on the value of used. And now the other thing we factor in there is the, the tier 4 engines, 2012, and DEF. So that it is what it is. Manufacturers had to make the new engines. They didn't have a choice. But on the used market, you do have a choice. Do you want to buy a 2-year-old one? Do you want to buy a 10-year-old one? And even before we moved into this tier 4 situation, now that they're getting to be 10 years old, time, I've noticed for years that I always considered the 10-year-old mark like the magic line in the sand, because 10 years you've depreciated that tractor, that combine enough that the price difference between a good 10-year-old one and a new one or a 2-year-old one was so big that I've noticed for my 31 years, it always makes everybody want the nicest 10-year-old item when they show up at auction or when they're on the dealer lot. Or if a dealer takes one in on trade, they probably already have it sold because there's so much demand for it. So this is why people ask me all the time, they're like, "Pete, what's the deal with all these 10-year-old tractors with hardly any hours on them?" Or like the one selling in Indiana today, the 8-year-old 8235R with 44 hours. Well, to me, a lot of it is just, I don't know if there's any sharper folks in business segment than farmers. I mean, if you survive through the ups and downs of farming, you've seen it all, you've done it all, and you just know in your bones that if I have a 10 or 15-year-old tractor or combine with low hours on it, that I'm in the driver's seat when I want to retire and sell it. If I want to trade that in, there's going to be a line of people that want that. So again, Gold Key, you're on it. The price of new is a huge factor. Now, I've always wondered, Ty, and we've talked about this, I've always considered this, or basically my 31 years, asked farmers, I'll be out at a sale and I'll ask farmers, do you think the price of a new tractor combine can keep going up? I remember asking that 25 years ago. Do you think it can hit 300,000? Do you think? No way. And we all say that, but they just keep going up. So I've always looked at it like a pirate ship with a plank on it. And if you're a manufacturer, again, I get it, the cost of materials and, human resources and everything. But the cost of new has gone up like 4 to 6% a year forever. And will there ever be a point where it gets just too much? Will we ever hit that point? and we have never hit it yet. And whether we will in the future, I don't know. But it does make a good used one very attractive option, no question.
So, Greg, let's say that I am wanting to update part of my fleet, okay? Geography is not an issue. What can I get the best deal on today and where?
Equipment sectors, best deals. Well, I guess, it's a little interesting. It's nuanced, but sprayers they're getting hotter, but still, I think on a good used self-propelled sprayer, they aren't quite as red hot as we see on the tractor market. So I think there might be some better buying options. And then the other thing I would tend to want to mention, Tyne, would be planters, but here we're drifting into, there's like a whole subcategory. If you get into the retrofit and rebuilt planters on the used market, if they're right, then there's so much demand, it drifts into that red hot category. But if it's a nice solid planter with a few years on it that's not retrofit, there can be some good buys there. So I would say those two sectors. And then geography wise, honestly, I struggle to give you an area, Tyne. I remember writing, we had a blog recently from Arkansas, which, down south, historically prices would be a little bit softer down south, no question. But like I said before, that is being challenged now. We see tons of strong auction prices out of the south. I remember a John Deere, I think it was a 6230, so kind of a under 100 horse with a little age on it, and had a loader, but it sold in Arkansas for like the highest price in 6-7 years. And I posted that, and people were like, wow, that came out of Arkansas. So again, it's all about condition. And I just don't see really any geographic spots that are just consistently weak right now. If it's good equipment condition, it's selling well no matter where it is.
Yeah, you mentioned planters, Greg, and I think Clinton Griffiths is going to have a discussion later on Farm Journal Field Days. You can sign up for that at farmjournalfielddays.com. He's going to have a discussion about high-speed planters, so that will be interesting to listen to later today. But Greg, also on Farm Journal Field Days, you have a chance to win a drone. And I know you are adamant that drones can be more than just a toy when it comes to selling used equipment. You say drones are actually a valuable tool.
Oh, unbelievable, Tyne. I see, I think we're at a pivot point, honestly, here with the used equipment and how used equipment is marketed. Now, whether that's a dealer on his lot, whether that's an auction, upcoming auction, or whether you're selling something privately. And I guess what I've noticed over the years, Tyne, particularly since social media kind of became a thing. So I started our Machinery Pete YouTube, Facebook, Twitter in 2009. I didn't know how to do it, but I had our high school daughter, Megan, at the time, teach me how to edit video. And anyway, as I waded in and started posting videos and, covering farm auctions, and one underlying truth, Tyne, all these years, and I think this will resonate with anyone listening, is, picture a really good farm retirement auction in your area or a farm estate auction. So you go to this sale and you know the farmer. And let's just say they have one of the best farmers. They were maybe a member of the church council. They were on the school board in the city, civically involved. Just a farmer where you'd go, yeah, they're doing it right. Okay. So all these 31 years I've been tracking this stuff. When you cover an auction like that, there's a premium on everything that sells on that auction. Let's just say the guy's name was Fred. The premium price is because of Fred. So you're selling the equipment, but you're also selling Fred and the way he cared for it and his reputation. Now, that was always a local truth where local people knew Fred. Well, now we're at the point, we're far enough along with YouTube and all this and social media. And social media, a lot of it, is gut-wrenchingly yucky. And we don't like that stuff. But we just steer clear of that crap out there and use social media for the good things, connecting farmers and having discussions. So with drones, what I've seen, Tyne, is that you as a farmer, you're doing your thing, you're planting, you're harvesting. Here, the number one piece of advice I could give you would be, either buy your own drone or hire some kid or local person that has a drone, and not for vanity purposes, but have them come get drone video of you planting in the spring and harvesting in the fall. And maybe if you want to have them out in the summer when you're, running the tractor or whatever, get drone video of that. Now, here's why. Because in 2, 3, 5 years from now, when you want to trade that combine or that planter or that tractor, let's say, or you want to sell it at auction. If you got me that drone video and you had an auction coming up in 2 weeks, and I said, hey, here, it's Fred's auction in 2 weeks in Central Illinois, and here's video of his Gleaner S67 with 1,200 hours rolling through the field. It sounds stupid, but I'm telling you, it sells for more money when you can emotionally engage people. And think of it this way. Think of the farm auctions over the years you go to, or even a consignment sale. Let's say it's a big consignment sale like Sullivan's used to have on site in Hamilton, Illinois there. Dan Sullivan would give the mic to the farmer you're standing in front of his round baler or whatever. He'd give the mic to the guy and say, hey, Bob, tell me about this round baler. And now it's Bob, the farmer, just, saying what's good or bad about his baler. But, smart auctioneers do that for a reason, because it connects you personally to the equipment, and bottom line, it just sells for more money. So if you can get your own video of your equipment and keep the video, have the local person that has a drone come on, do it, buy them a beer, buy them a steak, whatever. Just get the video, and then in 3 years, when it's time to sell it, just call me. In fact, Ty, last year at Louisville, I was doing my talk, and I'm trying to remember. I struggle with names so much. I'm a numbers guy. But out of Chillicothe, Ohio, it was a husband and wife came up, and they had to sell their Case IH 2366 combine. They were going to sell it private. And they'd been to my talk the year before, and I got on this jag about talking about drones. And they said, Pete, we got drone video. And I just went, oh, can you get me that video? So they sent it. We put out a little preview. Now, they listed it in our website, machinerypete.com. We have a for sale by owner now. And so that was during Louisville. So, Valentine's Day 2020. First day Commodity Classic last year, which was 2 weeks later, we were down in San Antonio. This dude comes up to me and he goes, Pete, I bought it. And I'm like, who are you and what did you buy? And it was Gary from Idaho. And he said, I saw your video on the 2366. And he bought it. And he said, I've been looking for a low-hour one. And hearing the owner talk about his combine and seeing the drone video of it rolling through the field, it changes things. And so, again, get drone video of your equipment and keep the video clips, because, and I tell this to all our dealer friends actually too, Tyne, is that when they take something in on trade, or even if I were a dealer, honestly, I would go out to my top 20 customers and just drone film them farming. So when you do take that item in on trade, you've got that drone video to put in the listing. It's just going to sell faster for more money.
Yeah, Cooper commented on Facebook and said he made some really good points. And Greg, do not apologize and say that you're bad with names, because the fact that you can remember years and models and the prices and the history is amazing.
Larry and Angie Hatfield.
That just came to you?
Yes, because my brain is full of numbers from 31 years. Names I struggle with, just terrible.
Greg, I'm pretty sure your brain's going to be studied at some point with everything that you hold in there.
Concussion syndrome.
All right. So don't forget, if you're thinking, wow, I could really use a drone, you can register when you register for Farm Journal Field Days, you have a chance to win a drone. You can do that, farmjournalfielddays.com. But Greg, as we look at it, on U.S. Farm Report, Ag Day, AgriTalk, AgWeb, and our magazines, we are exploring right now what a policy shift in Washington may mean for farmers, right? And there's a lot of buzz right now about climate initiatives. There's a lot of buzz right now about electric. When is that the talk about electric and possibly shifting some fleets to electric models? Do you think that is something that we're really going to hear about for tractors anytime soon? I mean, are we soon going to be talking about the trends in electric tractors?
Yeah, I don't know, Tyne. I mean, so I'm 55 and you get to be my age, and, I try not to be a cranky old man and say, well, back in my day, things are changing too fast. But the pace of change is breathtaking. I'm trying as best I can to paddle along and keep up with it. But I think farmers see opportunities on the carbon side. As things shake out there, and I think our ability to tell our story as an industry, we're getting better at it. Down to the farmer level, obviously, YouTube and things like that. Our care for the land, and as it pertains to electric tractors, I don't know. I mean, I was sitting there watching the Super Bowl and see the GM ad and read that they're switching over to all electric cars by not very far off. It's a changing world. I don't, like I say, I'm 55. I wonder in 10 or 20 years. I guess the other thing I sort of wonder about are the little autonomous. I say little, but we're seeing concept art right now, and with autonomous tractor or something. But you sort of wonder if it won't be a bunch of little bots out there in the field tailing along behind the planter or something, putting down whatever fertilizer we need. Who knows how that'll shake out? But farmers will roll with the punches and deal with it and look for opportunities in there. I guess the one thing I would say too, I've got a little over 3 decades compiling this stuff day by day. And actually what we talked about with Tier 4 engines could be a good example. Sometimes there's sort of a delayed effect in the used market time. So like right now, when you hear people say, oh man, that thing sold so high because it was pre-def, it was pre-Tier 4, everyone wants that. Sometimes it takes those thoughts a while to coalesce. And I don't know. I mean, if we get into electric tractors, that would be really interesting to see when the first ones are sold. And I feel like this every year walking around the show in Louisville. It's like, okay, all this new stuff is awesome. What's it going to be worth in 2 years?
Right.
I'm out at the auction watching it. So it would be fascinating to see, how the used values would hold up.
Yeah, and
so how's that for talking around and not giving you things?
Greg, I just talked to Renewable Fuels Association and the biodiesel folks just a couple of weeks ago, and they said, I said, what am I missing with this? And they said, well, Tanya, you have to understand, like E85, it's been around since the late 90s. And, and yes, E85 is used in a lot of vehicles, but not every vehicle today. And so sometimes the ideals and what is practical don't always match up. So we have to remember a lot can change in 10 years, 20 years, like you said. But Greg Cooper on Facebook said, Machinery Pete helped me sell my plow a couple months ago. It was amazing how effective a social media post from Machinery Pete was in selling it. And Greg, you may get flooded now with requests to show what they're selling, but it feels like social media has also changed the game when it comes to selling used equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, Tyne. We added for sale by owner at machinerypete.com. It was probably 2 years ago, and it took me a while to kind of see the possibilities there. And Cooper, thank you for listing your plow for sale with us. We greatly appreciate it. But Tyne, a lot of it is when folks like Cooper will reach out, be proactive and say, hey, Pete, I got this plow, I'm looking to sell it. And I want to help you move it. So, it's a way to utilize our Facebook and Twitter following. And at the same time, there's a bit of personalness to it. So what I like when people list their items for sale in machinerypete.com, I like going through the comments. So like yesterday, a guy, I think he was in Illinois, listed it was really sharp looking John Deere 7810 with, reasonable hours. It wasn't crazy low. But I took that and I went out to our Facebook and Twitter and posted it. And I can say this just came in. So then there's that element like, ooh, this is fresh news. There's a headline to this. But then also when you guys list it and you tell us how you used it. Well, I just used this to haul wagons, or I had this 4 years and I put 1,000 hours on it in 4 years. Those little comments are huge. And I try to relay those in the Facebook and Twitter posts. So then it's not just a plow, Cooper's plow. It's not just little, you gotta kind of make people stop and consider it. And with social media time, what we see happening is like Cooper's plow there. When I posted it, the post might get shared, or someone might see it in Tennessee and go, oh, my cousin in Kansas he's looking for that exact thing. So then they share it, or they just text the guy and go, hey, check out Machinery Pete Facebook. So we're just trying to pull those things forward and, again, help you move used equipment. Or if you're selling it at auction, again, if we can do a preview video of it, help you get more money for it. And at the same time, help buyers find what they're looking for.
Yeah. What's the website to list your equipment with you? machinerypete.com?
Yep, machinerypete.com. There's a little link right on the top. It says sell mine. You click on that. I think it costs like $50. And then if you do that, folks, then drop me a note, Facebook, or if you're on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, or just email me, greg@machinerypete.com, and say, hey, Pete, this is Bob from Tennessee. I just listed my planner or whatever. If I see it, then I'll try to pull that forward on social media and give you a little extra love there. Yeah, I'm trying to help you move it.
Greg, when you look at the Purdue Economy Barometer, I mentioned this earlier, but you saw the roller coaster ride that farmer sentiments were on in 2020. Now we're seeing strength in that sentiment, just like we are with equipment values in 2021. Future expectations, there's a little bit of concerns there. But with the Purdue Ag Economy Barometer and equipment trends that you follow, is there any correlation there?
Oh, a huge correlation. And let me just start by saying I'm a huge fan of what Jim and the folks at Purdue there do with the barometer. Our youngest daughter graduated Purdue in 15, so boiler up, awesome school. But yeah, the barometer, I've been fascinated to watch that time. I think what I would say is that I've always called it checkbook reality. That's kind of what I've been doing 31 years, compiling this stuff day by day. So there's the sentiment element. Like if you ask, and I love how Farm Journal does this too. You guys have the polls you put out asking farmers. What we say doesn't always translate to what we do, and I think, but when you are talking about used equipment and you put one item up for sale, like that John Deere 8400 yesterday or the 8235 today in Indiana. Okay, we've had all the chatter. I think it's going to bring 80. I think it's going to bring 120. Okay, what did it sell for? It brought 100. And how does that stack up? That's the checkbook reality. And I've been seeing that the numbers go up like this. So I think maybe our auction pricing and the index we put up might be a little bit ahead of that, the sentiment index. And I always think of the coffee shop time. Benson, so guys like my dad or the local farmers, they hang out at Burger King or the local bakery, Benson Bakery. It's awesome.
Oh, I think, Greg, your internet I think it cut out just a little bit. We'll wait for Greg to rejoin us and his internet to catch up. It probably froze, considering how cold temperatures up where he is in Minnesota. But the rest of today on farmjournalfielddays.com, there is so much with Farm Journal Field Day. So this just kicks off our discussion looking at trends. I mentioned Clinton Griffiths is having a discussion on high-speed planters. You'll have a chance actually to ask Greg more questions coming up later today. So it's all things equipment related today for Farm Journal Field Days. You can check that out at farmjournalfielddays.com. And then, we also have a planting edition coming up. We have some other editions coming up on farmjournalfielddays.com. So I was trying to see if we got Greg back. I'm trying to monitor both things right now. Greg is back. Yes, your internet thawed out, Greg.
Maybe it's 10 below here. Maybe that I can blame it on that time.
Greg, you didn't hear me. I did blame it on that. So yeah, I did.
Excellent.
I did. I know how cold it is. Okay, real quick though, Greg. I know you don't like to look ahead at trends and what possibly we could see in the new year because you're a data guy and so you want to look at concrete numbers. But when you look at inventory issues, because we've had demand so strong lately, are we running into some inventory issues in 2021?
Yeah, great question, Tyann. That's one of the top issues I'm looking at. And honestly, I think we are a little bit. I won't say it's as bad as it was kind of late 07, 08 when things really took off. But the dealers, they do have less of kind of the used inventory that people are really wanting. So, for example, I've had dealers the last 6 to 9 months tell me, man, if you could give me that 10-year-old Magnum or that R-Series Deere tractor, we could sell it in a heartbeat. We just don't have enough. So I think, yes, availability is a little bit of an issue. The one thing, if we spread this out looking longer term ahead time, I'll be fascinated to watch at the dealer level to see kind of the collective mindset, how they approach this. Because when times were good last time from late 07 into 13, they sold a ton of new iron, but wound up with a huge overhang of large late model used equipment.
Right.
And it took them 3+ years to work out from under that, maybe more. And what dealers would verbalize at the time coming out of that was, Pete, we're never doing this again. We're not going to do it. Okay, there again, that's what they say. But now the game is structured for them at the manufacturer level that they're rewarded. They have to meet market share goals. So they got to move new product. They just got to move it. And they're incentivized to do that, which, that's fine. So you've got this internal battle with let's crank and move all this new stuff. There's farmer demand versus, we want to be careful not to get the overhang. So it's this battle. I asked a large dealer about this last month. I said, how do you think it'll go this time? And he kind of chuckled and he said, I fear for where we're going back to. But I will say, Tyne, that again, I think the online element being so much more robust, plus fewer larger dealers, I don't think we'll get maybe the train wreck of excess used on the backside of this whenever commodity prices go down, but that's just my guess.
Okay, Greg, real quick, we have a couple questions coming in, only about less than 10 minutes left for our discussion. So I want to try to get these both in. First, Tyler on Facebook says, John Deere seemed to pick up on the demand for simple, smaller equipment with the announcement of their 1745 MaxEmerge 5 planter designed for use with older tractors. Is the rest of the industry picking up on this trend, and will this end up affecting used equipment prices?
Oh, that is a fantastic question from Tyler. Yeah. Thank you for that. In fact, Tyne, when we were down at Louisville last year, before COVID hit, the last big farm show, the epicenter of the whole show was that planter Tyler talked about. It was their Narrow Transport 1745. Now, they did have it hooked behind a John Deere 4430 owned by Don Cummins in Seymour, Indiana. And
that
he
was
had
beautiful.
4430 looked like new. But the whole gist was, to Tyler's point, was smaller, new equipment made for the smaller market. So yes, Deere, very smart play to do that. I think Kubota, obviously, structurally, is always been more in tune to that. And as they grow, through acquisitions like Great Plains and expand their tractor line, that's what they're shooting for, is that, a little bit smaller, a little bit simpler, frankly, a little bit less expensive, machine. And I think that's spot on. I think there's a huge opportunity there. I think Deere is on it. To Tyler's point, to her question about how it will affect used values, I think there'll be demand for those like a 1745 when it hits the used market. And in fact, Tyler, I saw a planter come through last week, and if you follow my stuff on Facebook and Twitter, you've probably seen this stuff, where you'll get a really nice condition, like a 1760 and older, like an 8-row, 12-row, and it sells for a price, and you go, wow, that's really high. And the comment there quite often is, well, I can't buy a new one. And so, again, I think it's really smart for manufacturers to cater to the smaller capacity farmer. I mean, bigger and larger is great, but don't forget about the smaller operations.
Okay, Greg, 5 minutes left. Cooper, he must have had his morning coffee or caffeine or whatever he drinks, because he is coming in hot this morning with the questions. Cooper says, now I got to find him. Okay, a guy, he actually said that a guy bought his from Ohio. He drove up from Ohio, bought it. He'd been trying to sell it for 3 months before he posted it on Machinery Repeat. So apparently it was the magic trick. But he asked, do you think Tier 4 equipment will be more valuable if right to repair legislation is passed for everyone to service their own equipment?
Ooh, really good question there, Cooper. Right to repair, if that in some fashion went through, yeah, you could certainly make the argument that would make a 13, 14, 15 model, whatever, tractor combine more valuable. What I would say to that, now this gets really interesting, Tyne, is there no question has been this increased push for pre-tier 4, pre-def. Like I said, the 10, 15, 20-year-old models in good condition have been going up in value, and people will verbalize, well, I just wanted a simpler one, whatever.
Right.
But one of the signs of 2020 being a stronger year, even before fall and commodity prices went up, was what I saw happen with the 2012 to 15 models, which had been a soft spot. In fact, a year ago, coming into 2020 time, I was advising people, look at that 2012, 13, 14 model. Yes, it's tier 4, but the price gap between the people bidding so high for the 10 to 12-year-old stuff and the 1 to 3-year-old stuff, that was an opportunity. But what I saw was that the 2012 to 15 models, they strengthened right through last year. So, yeah, Cooper, if some type of legislation passed, right to repair, it definitely would help the buyer perception and demand for that stuff. But it seems like, to me, it's kind of strengthening right now anyway.
Okay, to wrap up our discussion overall, though, Greg, 2021 off to a roaring start, but we finished 2020 that way. What do you think the theme is going to be for 2021?
Again, one word for me right now, time for the whole 2021 market is availability. Whether we're talking, auctions, will there be fewer auctions when times are good? Maybe farmers decide, well, maybe I'll hang in for another year. You could have a little bit of that going on. And then again, the dealers are going into this already comparatively a little bit lighter on the used inventory situation. So I think just be mindful, folks. Again, if you definitely know you need something, I guess I hate giving you guys advice, but when I've seen this before, availability usually means act now, because otherwise you won't find it, or you have to settle for something. I don't really want this, but I needed it. So, I'd be proactive on the front end of this. And then, we'll just, monitor levels on the dealer lot and see where we wind up time.
Well, it is always fun hanging out and talking to the Machinery Pete, Greg Peterson. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And if you want to get in on the fun and chat with Machinery Pete, you'll have the chance to do so today. That's because it's Farm Journal Field Days Equipment Edition. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, make sure to hop on over to farmjournalfielddays.com. You can do it from the comfort of your warm home or office today. Perfect day to stay inside and just digest all this equipment information. So, Greg, I know a fun day is planned over at farmjournalfielddays.com. You can win a drone and talk to you one-on-one. What more could you want on this February day?
Oh, well, hey, super fun hanging out with you, Ty, and always, and talking machinery. Thank you, folks, for all your questions. And at noon Central today, I'll be doing a chat in the networking lounge, Farm Journal Field Days Equipment Edition. So hop in there, folks. It's free. Just get registered, hop in. We'll continue discussion, and we'll see what that 8235 hour with 44 hours in Indiana, see what that sells for today.
So it'll be wrapped up by then?
It should be. Okay. So I'll be reporting on that. And I'll be sharing at noon on the chat time there was a collector sale last night in Avoca, Iowa, Farmland USA Museum, their fourth retirement auction. But some eye-opening prices on red tractors. If you're into that, folks, stay tuned.
Oh, awesome. Greg, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining in, whether you're on Farm Journal Field Days or on our Facebook pages. We really appreciated a lively discussion this morning. Thank you so much for participating. But don't forget, the day is just getting started. So you can hop on over to farmjournalfielddays.com for today's equipment edition.